the 2000s, I remember reading test after test in which this car, despite having an engine derived from a Mondeo, managed to beat Porsche and Ferrari in terms of performance and handling. Today, from the perspective of a normal person, I want to find out if this really is the better car. Now, firstly, you have to understand just what incredible value this was when it was released. £52,000 in the UK was the retail price. To get a bit of perspective, a base Ferrari 360 before options was £102,000, so basically double the price. This weighs 1,040 kilos, so the Ferrari about 450 kilos more. That is a phenomenal amount. Everybody will tell you that this engine was derived from that used in a lowly Mondeo, but of course that doesn't tell the whole story. There are very, very few components left in this from the original Ford engine. It was thoroughly re-engineered by Roush. It's now a twin turbo. In various versions of the M12, they put out from 340 to 425 horsepower. In this particular car, it is M400 spec, so about 425 horses, 1,040 kilos, 400 horsepower per tonne. They do very much look like racing cars, and indeed they sit on a space frame chassis, double wishbones, adjustable shocks, AP racing brakes, but by all accounts, they are still quite usable. Let's take it out, see how it drives, and crucially, how it compares to Porsches and Ferraris of that time. When first introduced, it was as the M12 GTO. It produced 340 horsepower. There was then the GTO 3. Reason why it was called the 3, it went up from 2.5 to 3 litres and correspondingly a higher power output. I can't remember now what it is, but the base car was 340. Then there was the R, which is what this car is based on. That had the 3 litre engine, but in addition it had the faired-in headlights at the front. It also had a Quaife limited slip diff, and again a little bit more power. And then finally the M400. Visually not much different, but it had another power spike on top, 425 horsepower, which is pretty much what this is. I'm so excited to be in this because, as I said before, I've read so many tests from back when it was launched, lauding it, saying how good it was. There's also a Top Gear review by Clarkson, and even he loved it, which is pretty rare really with a cottage industry built car like this. One of the things that will immediately hit you as you're driving it, it is quite intimidating when you first get in it because of the way it looks, how low it is. These seats, now normally they have a mixture of the 4-point harness as standard and inertia reels. The inertia reel has been taken off this one, so it just has the 4-point harness. The transmission tunnel is a little bit in the way of my left leg, and the pedals are slightly offset as well. And it doesn't feel like it's a hugely roomy cabin, but it's not bad. The instruments, the whole dash is quite close to you. But then the wheel is in exactly the right place, so is the gear change. These as well, I have heard, these gearboxes can be quite temperamental, and from a stand when I was manoeuvring it about, putting it into third gear then first, I found it quite difficult, but I'm already seeing that actually going from third to fourth, it's got a lovely, very light, snicky feel to it, so promising pretty well. Now normally here I would say let's take it through the gears, but I can see that people are, actually we might get a clear run to the left. I'm going to very gradually get used to the power because these are supposed to be pretty savage. I think that's about not even half throttle, and this thing just shoots forward. You've got that old-fashioned sort of whoosh, turbo whoosh from the back end of the car. So it's promising to be quite quick. What blows me away though is this is the worst bumpy bit of road that there is on my test route, which is generally bumpy anyway. And this handles it so well. Apart from the travel, there isn't that much travel, so the bigger bumps move the car. Oh, there was a few little, they weren't ducklings or something of the kind there, but I think I missed them all. The suspension on this is simply astoundingly good. It's not at all stiff. It's so pliant. Oh, and the steering feels so natural as well. I think they've got the speed on this right. It's not as manic as a Ferrari helm, as a 360 would be. Okay, first gear, plenty of room. Definitely one of the quickest cars that I've been in, so I don't always do this route, you will know. Normally I just go on the other bit, but this is a bit of a wider road, and if there's cars that are particularly quick and I'm a bit worried about maxing out on the other bit, I will come here and yeah, it's fast, but it's not as intimidating as you would think. Even when you're using that power, there's quite a lot of traction there. And I think that the chassis is so good, the suspension is great, that bumps don't deflect you, so it doesn't feel as hairy as it might do. What I really want to know though, is what it's like on some corners. So far, just slight use of the steering, and it feels great. Let's get away with one small negative. Although that engine is plenty powerful enough, great drivability, it doesn't sound quite as entertaining or as dramatic as the 360 lump would, but this is far, far faster, and it's not an outright criticism. It still sounds good, it's still got plenty of character. It would be difficult for it to match a flat plane V8 from Ferrari though. That turbo thrust is quite something. The chassis is unbelievably good. It's so approachable, this car. The front end gives you an incredible amount of feel. There's so much grip though on the road like this. I don't think I'm going to be able to get anywhere close to the limits of it. Throttle is really quite long travel. It reminds me a little bit of a TVR, but I think that's because there's absolutely no assistance in this car. So yeah, you have power steering, servoed brakes, but that's it. No ABS, no traction control. Your right foot is the traction control. Power delivery though is surprisingly friendly. There is turbo lag, but you always know what the engine is going to do and when it's going to do it. You can feel the lightness. I'm so enjoying taking it down this road and actually just driving it for the pleasure of it, so much so I'm going to go back down and back up, because this car really gives you back a lot. And I can tell you already, if we are talking merely about driving pleasure, there is no competition from the equivalent Ferrari 360. This is just on another level. It really is. What an absolutely astounding machine. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this has the most reassuring front end of any car I've driven. The brakes work really well, but the front just feels rock solid. But that doesn't make it any the less agile. Very, very well judged. It feels like there's so much in reserve there, right? I almost want to cry. Get out the way. You need a racetrack or a bigger, wider, less trafficked road to get anywhere near the limits of this thing, so I can't really comment about what it will do when you get to that stage, but to be honest, it's so good anyway. Just driven at, what is this, 6/10 maybe? I don't know. It's so good, so much fun, and it flatters you as well. It makes me feel like I'm a good driver, which I'm not. It makes me feel like, you know, oh, I love it. Going back to the gear change quickly, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th are all really nice, but 2nd and 1st a little bit more obstructive. But for normal driving, you don't tend to notice because 3rd gear is plenty for most situations. Okay, so as a pure driver's car, I'm afraid that this completely mullers a Ferrari 360, but there are some other areas where the Ferrari is better. The engine is more dramatic, it's more entertaining, it is more thoroughbred. It is also more usable. This is very comfortable, the suspension is great. It's not overly noisy, there is a bit of engine noise coming through. Driving position is comfortable, but the Ferrari has more space, easier to get in and out of, and in those ways it is better. If we're talking about a 911, a 996 GT3 RS, for example, the gap will narrow because those are absolutely phenomenal machines. Even then, when they were new, that would have been about 90,000, I think, so still a good 30,000 more than this. So what an absolute bargain these things were. And still today, they are incredible value for the performance and for what they give you. Now, to buy one of these, you are looking at 45 to 60,000 pounds. I can't think of anything else that would deliver the performance or even the driving enjoyment. Perhaps a Lotus Elise in a different way is able to give you some of the amazing thrills that this does. An Elise is definitely not as fast as this. I'm not taking anything away from an Elise, but God, this thing just offers you so much for so little money. I think in terms of maintenance and stuff as well, they're not too bad. It's probably going to be cheaper to look after than a Ferrari. It will have a few quirks, sure, and you might have to put up with a few things, but ultimately you're getting an incredible handling car for very, very little money compared to what else is out there. 360 is still really a fantastic car to drive, but I find that the steering is overly light. This is properly weighed, and the speed of it as well works better for me than the manic Ferrari helm. Quality-wise, the Ferrari isn't brilliant, but it is a step above this. This car here has already had some significant improvements. Damon has changed some of the shiny silver plastic that really dated these interiors, done something with the controls there as well, moved some of the telltale lights so it's a bit more organized. The controls for the stereo used to be on the passenger side, he's moved them over there. So overall, this has already been improved, but you can't get away from the fact that it has a roll cage here. It may be covered in Alcantara, but it is right by your head. That worries me slightly for a road car if you're not wearing a helmet. The engine makes itself heard. You can really hear everything coming from the back, racing car style. But on a constant throttle at about sort of 60 or 70 miles an hour, it's actually pretty civilized. Wind noise isn't too bad. It is comfortable. Just a lack of room around your legs is the only thing that would count against it a little bit, as is first and second gear requiring a bit of concentration. In terms of the view out as well, that would bother you. Damon's put in a camera with a mirror there, so that helps to some extent. After some initial success, Noble weren't able to translate this into full-on commercial enterprise level. So the M600 that came after this didn't work for me. Much more expensive car. It had a Volvo-derived V8, but the looks, it looked bigger. This has a track-focused look, track refugee, and it works. It gets away with it. That car just, I don't know. I haven't tried one. They're probably brilliant to drive, but it wasn't a huge success. There is now an M500. There was a prototype that was tested for one of those back in 2023. It certainly looks better. I'm not sure how it would be in production terms, but as far as I'm aware, none have been sold. So you're going from a brilliant product. This so often happens in the UK. Why haven't we been able to translate that into a full-on production sense? Massive thanks to Damon for coming down today and bringing me this. You can tell that this is one of the ones I really, really love. Please do check out my Facebook page. I'm putting loads of extra content on there at the moment. If you're able to follow, that'd be really helpful. I'll put a link in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today, and I look forward to seeing you for the next video.